There's probably, like I said, about 6 or 7 cases that I've worked on that involve the death penalty. 2 I'm still working on currently. One is Commonwealth versus Arthur Bomar. Arthur Bomar killed Amy Willard on the Blue Route, and her father is a friend of mine.
And on October 1st, 1998, a jury in Delaware County convicted Arthur Bomar of first-degree murder, kidnapping, rape, abuse of corpse, and aggravated assault for the brutal killing of Amy Willard, which occurred on June 19th to the 20th of 1996. She was a star lacrosse player at George Mason University at the time of her death. Bomar was formally sentenced to death on October 5th, 1998.
In that case, Arthur Bomar had previously committed a murder, and he committed all kinds of crimes in connection with this case, and he's also a suspect in another case.
This is one very dangerous individual that has killed multiple times in the city of Philadelphia, here in Delaware County, and is even suspected of other killings. So I say to you that this is one individual that certainly deserves the death penalty.
He has been challenging the verdict and the representation of his lawyers ever since.
There were claims concerning, like, that the jury was not properly picked. There were claims that trial counsel did not do an effective job in representing Mr. Bomar. You name it, they claimed it. There were 20 claims, each of which had several subclaims, and that's why you see 213 pages to explain some of the allegations that were raised.
The system is geared to make it difficult to carry out, to find a death penalty. Just by the way that it is geared is to give a defendant every opportunity for him not to have a death penalty. But even with that, you still have a lot of people who have bad backgrounds in terms of previous murders, or the killings themselves are horrific in a way that causes them to be death penalty eligible, and then the mitigation isn't so much, and they get found guilty.
This is a death penalty case. The defendant committed murder during the course of a felony, kidnapping, and rape. Bomar represents every parent's worst nightmare. He took from 2 devoted parents a child who was loving and was loved by her family, her friends, and her peers. Amy was a star athlete who had a bright future, which was violently ended by this heinous criminal defendant, Arthur Bomar.
One of the cases that I'm looking at currently is a case called Glossip, Glossip versus Gross, Gross. You had a handful of death row inmates who were complaining about the method by which they were going to be executed. They were claiming that the state of Oklahoma was using a drug combination that they thought was likely to cause serious pain. And the U.S. Supreme Court, when it decided the case, made the comment that nobody is entitled to a pain-free execution.
The problem for the challengers here was that 7 years ago the Supreme Court said that lethal injection itself is constitutional, and it said when somebody wants to challenge lethal injection, they have to show that they have a better way than the state did. But clearly the challengers here said the problem was just the first drug, that it didn't sufficiently knock somebody out.
The case makes clear that what we're talking about really is the carrying out of an execution as opposed to the constitutionality of the execution, that the death penalty is constitutional.
It's interesting that Justice Alito wrote this decision, because during the oral argument, he said to the death penalty opponents, or the lethal injection opponents here, you know, you're the reason this case is here.
It is recognized in the Fifth Amendment, which talks about not being able to take away life or liberty without the due process of law. Well, implicit in that is that you can take away life or liberty with due process of law. It's really, I think, a poor argument to say that it's not constitutional when the Constitution includes reference to capital punishment. You can argue all you want about whether or not it's a good idea or not a good idea, whether it's too expensive, whether it takes too much time, whether there's a moral basis or some other reason for choosing not to pursue it. But there's not really a good argument to suggest that it's not constitutional. Those who would say that we've evolved or that we've come to a different place in our history, that's an argument for changing the law. That's an argument for changing the Constitution. That's not an argument for saying that the Constitution doesn't permit what it says. So, if you don't like it, if there are things that you want to do differently, if you think that there's whether it's the means of carrying it out or carrying it out at all, there are ways of going about doing something about it. But saying that it's not constitutional shouldn't be one of them.